All right, Mike, ready? 1, 2, 3. Whatchamacallit?
None.
Oh, that's a weird one.
They don't make them anymore, though. They haven't made them in a long time. And they were so fucking good.
Huh. I don't even know if I've ever had a bar none.
It's like one of those things where I'm chasing it all these years later. Just like, I was literally just talking about this last night, but do you remember the candy called Rascals?
Oh, yeah.
They were like Skittles, except awesomer. Man,
Yes, sir.
I wish they still made those.
There's one candy I'll always be out searching for. And when I was a kid, I used to get it. And it was like higher on the shelf that I can see. But it was like a roll like of Lifesavers. But they weren't Lifesavers. All I remember is that it had Captain Caveman on it. And they were the best fucking candy on the planet.
Captain Caveman Lifesavers. Were they like the Lifesavers knockoffs?
Yeah, they were just some like hard candy that was in a roll.
I don't recall those.
Well, cool thing about the future is we can probably just Google it and I'll find it.
Yeah. Captain Caveman roll hard candy. Give me stuff.
If it still exists, it's like 30 years old, so no thanks.
Yeah. You find it on eBay. It's all dusty and everything. I mean, you can take a stab at it. If I found a package of Rascals, I would take a stab at it. I would give them a try.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. They're so good.
I wouldn't mind some Crystal Pepsi.
Well, that just got re-released a couple of years ago.
What?
I legit have one right here on top of my fridge.
Wow, I must have missed that. That sucks.
It tasted the same. That's why it didn't stick around.
Oh, hey guys, didn't see you there. Thanks for listening to the Whatcast.
Thanks for listening to us discuss our favorite confections.
Yes, we can go on and on and on. But
oh my god, you have no idea. I'm such a candy fan, especially back in the day. So much of my allowance each week would go to procuring candy at the local candy stores.
Same here, man. They have all these boxes you can get monthly of meats and fucking foods and vegetables and snacks. Mm-hmm. And that's all cool, but I finally found a company that'll send you a mixed box every month from candy all over the world.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Fucking, I was like, ooh, that was a hard pass. I was like, damn it. I want Russian Skittles, damn it.
Want to know what the flavors are?
It's all like bitter cold, fortitude.
Frostbite nipples. Potato porridge. My favorite potato porridge.
And fruit.
Yeah. And vodka. Taste the Russian rainbow. Speaking of Russia.
Hey, what a segue. We didn't even mean to do that.
God.
Fuck. Let's pat ourselves on the back.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. From candy to the Dyatlov Pass in like 5 minutes or so.
Yep.
So we're finally doing it again. We did our first episode ever on the Dyatlov Pass, and I haven't listened to it since it came out, and I'm sure it was god awful. I know it was only like a half hour long, so we probably didn't get too into it because we also discussed other things as well. So we really just rushed through it, I'm sure.
I'd love to be able to recommend you go back and listen to it, but we both agree.
No,
we're not going to.
If you guys haven't listened to it, then don't.
Keep it that way.
Yeah, because we're going to talk about it here, so you don't need to hear us stumble through a really awkward first encounter podcast thing.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, it was anyway. Don't listen to that. Listen to this. Just keep listening. Listen, damn it. All right. So that's the deal.
Well, you just got way quiet.
It's because I'm getting serious, Mateo.
Yeah, we're kind of forced to revisit the Dyatlov Pass incident because there's been so many advancements in theories of what happened there, and they're actually have reopened the case late 2018.
Yeah, I haven't been able to find very much on that though. There were some articles that came out in February saying that it had been reopened, and I haven't heard anything since. I haven't heard any further news or updates on what it was, but I've got my own theory.
Yeah, I don't know how much that means. Them just saying they reopened the case. I mean, there's some places that still have like the Zodiac killer case is still open, but almost everybody involved's like retired, old, dead, or suspects are dead. It doesn't matter. It's still open, but it just doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, there's no evidence to go over. The snows have come and gone for the past 50 years now.
Mm-hmm.
More than 50. Yeah.
But this is definitely one of my most favorite, I have to say, paranormal cases ever. I mean, this was one of the spurs to want to cover paranormal stuff was this case.
I'm hesitant to say that it's a paranormal case. It is interesting the cause of death, that the official cause of death. I've never heard that cause of death used before.
What was the terminology?
It was
an unseen force, damage by an unseen force.
No, extraordinary unexplained force or something like that. I'm pretty sure extraordinary was in there though. By an extraordinary force, and that might have been what it was. But anyway, for those who are unfamiliar with the case, maybe we should get into the details before we start talking about theories related to the details.
Yeah, let's do a quick rundown of what actually happened.
Let us do that.
The Dyatlov Pass incident took place between February 1st and 2nd of 1959. There were 9 students from the Ural Polytechnical Institute that set out on a skiing expedition.
It's the Ural.
I see. I've heard it pronounced a few different ways now. I tried to figure out how to say it properly, but
really?
Yeah, last I heard was Ural, but I don't know Russian.
Yeah, I've always heard it pronounced Ural, but continue. I'm sorry. I did not mean to interject.
But these 9 students went on this skiing expedition across the Ural Mountains in the former Soviet Union. And this wasn't like an unknown trek. People have done this trek before. It's in some pretty treacherous areas, but after the team failed to contact the Institute after a predetermined time, and also by complaints made by the family members of the missing, a rescue team was sent to go see what happened to these people. And I have to add that it took 3 fucking weeks after this predetermined date had come and gone. They set out a few days before February started, and I guess the 17th was when they were supposed to contact the school and let them know they would reach their destination safely. And they waited 3 weeks, which kind of throws a wrench in the whole thing, or at least some suspicion anyway. But they finally sent a rescue team to see what happened to them. And what they found, as we mentioned before, has remained one of the weirdest and most baffling scenes in history. On the 26th, rescuers found the group's tent was half buried in the snow, and it was tore open, and they later determined that it was tore open from the inside. The entire group was gone. Half of their clothes was left behind, their shoes were left behind, and all of their personal belongings were still there. 8 or 9 different sets of footprints were accounted for, and they were coming from the campsite that they had found leading to some nearby woods. The prints indicated that some of the students were walking with only socks on, and some were even barefoot. Moreover, these woods that they were headed towards were almost a mile away from this camp. A few yards into the woods, rescuers found the bodies of 2 of the students under a pine tree, wearing only their underwear. The branches of the pine tree that they were under had the branches broken off 16 feet up this tree. They determined that was probably caused by one of these people climbing up this tree to kind of get a better view, but I don't know how they'd break every single fucking branch. I don't know.
Or it was a yeti.
Yeah.
Who grabbed him by the ankles and flailed him around until all the branches broke off the tree. like fucking Jason Voorhees or some shit. Just rips him out of his tent by his ankle and just starts smashing him into trees.
Yeah, sleeping bag kill.
Yeah, I love it. It's one of my favorites still to this day.
But that's one of the things I always found weird is that explanation of them climbing the tree. I mean, if they're in their underwear and it's basically a snow blizzard constantly on top of this mountain, I don't think they're going to be able to give it too many tries, but...
I've got an idea behind that.
All right, cool. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
As the rescue team returned back to the campsite, they found 3 more of the bodies. Some of the students seemed to have had cut strips of clothing off of their dead friends and tied the strips to their own bodies and clothes. 3 of the 5 bodies that were found to have strange and fatal injuries. One of the bodies' skull was crushed. 2 of the other bodies' rib cages were caved in. And one of the bodies was missing the eyes, the tongue, and a section of their skull. It took more than 2 months to finding the remaining 4 students. They were found 246 feet deeper into the woods. The place that they were found, to make it more spooky, and something I found interesting, I don't even want to try to pronounce this because I already said Earl wrong, but Kolat Sakol is the pass where they were at. It was renamed the Dyatlov Pass after this incident, after the leader of the expedition. But traditionally, we're told, and when you read about this, that means mountain of death. You remember coming across that, studying this?
Yeah, but doesn't it mean, isn't it more like the translation is more like a phrase relating to a lack of hunting animals or animals to hunt?
Yeah, I found that the literal translation means lack of game. So it's not a mountain of...
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's not a mountain of death. It's just basically a dead mountain. There's no game on it.
But the weird thing about that name is that at the time that this was going on, there was a group of native Mansi. They were the native Mansi people. They were on the mountain hunting.
Yes, but the one thing that they said against that, an argument against it being those people who had maybe attacked these people, was that there was no tracks coming from anybody else.
Oh no, I'm not even talking about that theory yet. I'm just saying that it's confirmed that there was a group of hunters on the island or on the mountain.
Oh wow, really?
At that night, yeah.
I did not know that. See, now that's very interesting because. If we'll get into more about their injuries in a little bit, but the injuries that they suffered, they said that was the equivalent of a very, very violent car crash.
Yeah,
the way that these ribs were crushed and shit. And one of my favorite things about this case, if you can call it that, that's weird to say, but with these devastating injuries, there were no external injuries.
Yeah, that's one of the weirder things, but there are some things that could account for that.
I'd love to know what can crush your skull without leaving any bruising.
Well, the thing is that when the bruising wouldn't have been a factor at that point anyway, because they were found weeks later after they had been missing. So the bruising at that point would have all pooled to wherever they were, whatever position they were laying in. That would have, because of gravity.
But wouldn't being frozen not allow that to happen?
No, because there was some decomposition that had set in. There's some that even suggest that the lack of eyes and the tongue was due to decomposition. I don't know what if there were periods of thaws in the intervening time between when they went missing and when they were found, but it's possible that they could have started the decomposition process and any bruises or anything would have gone away, but all it would take is a concussive force, really. I mean, from something as simple as a fall to something as crazy as like a sonic beam gun or the aftershock from a missile strike or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or alien weaponry. You be the judge. Or the Yeti's massive fists.
His ghost fist of fury. Now, when we
Yes.
first talked about Dyatlov, talking about alien weaponry, maybe there
Mhm.
were reports of UFOs around the mountain the weeks during and after this incident, were there?
The night of the incident, in fact. Now going back to this group of hunters that was on the mountains, they were of the local Mansi tribe, and there is a theory that says that it was the Mansi tribe that killed them. But as you stated, this wasn't it wasn't unheard of to go hiking through here, and the area had been well known among geologists and hikers. So there's going to be strangers coming through the mountains more often than a remote mountain pass. And these people would have been familiar with them, with, maybe not these individuals, but they would have been familiar with strangers coming around their land. And it doesn't make sense, for one, that they would all of a sudden just kill these people in such a weird way too, and then just leave them and then not take anything. You've already killed them, and their tent is ripped open, but all of their belongings were still there. There wasn't any valuables missing. So you'd have to think, if someone was intentionally going to be killing them, especially if it was a tribe who felt that they were that their lands were being trespassed on, that they would have stolen whatever they could from these people that were trespassing on their land. But there was nothing missing, and the people were dead, and they were killed and by extraordinary means. It wasn't by clubs or a gun or a knife or anything like that. It was just weird cause of death, and no one can really explain what killed these people. And like you said, the lack of tracks going to, but then again, that could be attributed to snowfall, though. If there was enough snow and wind, tracks would have been covered up without issue.
I've always had an issue with the rescue team saying that they were able to account 8, possibly all 9 students' tracks 3 weeks after they've been walking through there. Who knows how recent this whatever happened, but that is that would have been covered for sure by how harsh the conditions are up there. Maybe it happened like the day before. That's kind of scary to think about as well.
One source that I was reading was talking about the initial investigation, and you got to keep in mind this was deep into the Cold War. So we had been doing this Cold War thing with the Russians for over a decade at this point. And there's a lot of different reasons why this story could have been covered up. But the Mansi tribes, they still held on to pagan shamanic beliefs. And the Soviet Union was very much atheist. Religion was forbidden, and these people with their strange ways and their strange religious beliefs kind of seemed off-putting to Soviet officials. So it would just be an easy scapegoat to be like, no, it was these pagans in the mountains that worship all these old gods. And from there it's really easy to spin the human sacrifice angle and talk about their crazy witch doctors killing these people for these old pagan deities, and some people are saying that they were desecrating the mountain just by being there, and it's just, it makes a convenient story when you don't have any real answers.
Yeah, every time I've read about those tribes possibly attacking the students, they always are reported on having that type of feel to it. Like it could have been these people. It's always brushed over that. I don't know. I didn't really see the people out there like wearing fucking rabbit pelts and shit like that, living in caves, for Christ's sakes. They're not going to walk up on a bunch of students in the 1959 and just start fucking shooting them.
And that's why I think they painted this picture, because I think I think that there's some sort of cover up here, and there's some interesting theories that have come up, and I mean, at this point we're still no closer to a real answer than we were when we first covered the episode, but there have been some really interesting theories that have come up, and one of them, there's a few that are kind of out there, and we'll start with those and kind of go to the more plausible ones. But so there's the paranormal take, with it being a yeti attack, which, you know, it's very unlikely that was the case. And there's still the mystery of why they cut open the back of their tent, unless the yeti was smashing the middle of the tent, because when you look at the pictures, the middle of the tent is what's covered in snow. The end of the tent is still upright. So it looks like maybe something collapsed the middle of the tent. And that could have just been 3 weeks worth of snowfall, putting weight on the middle of it, causing it to collapse. Or it was the beefy fists of a yeti, and, you know, the classic Siberian yeti. And it scared them so much they cut their way out the back of the tent and they took off. Little did they know, Yeti had his boys hiding behind the snowdrifts, and as they ran out one by one, they picked them off. One of them got punched in the skull, shattering their skull, and they got hit so hard that their eyes went flying out. One just grabbed one of the campers, and they were screaming, and they got sick of the screaming, so they just shoved their fist down their throat and ripped their tongue out and threw them down to the ground with such force that it shattered their rib cage.
See, here's my problem with the whole Yeti thing. I think if there's going to be a Yeti ambush, I think they're going to fucking wreck house. I think there's going to be blood all over the place. I think their injuries are going to be super severe and brutal, like if a 9-foot tall snow monkey grabbed them and smashed their rib cage in.
Whoa. Way to be specious there, 9-foot tall snow monkey. These things are tactical yetis. They've trained with the Tibetan monks.
See, that's another thing. How are these injuries being so life-threatening and delicate? Did he know like a shadow fist technique or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. After years of training with the monks in Tibet, they traveled north to Siberia, took up shop in the mountains, and practiced their shadow fist techniques on unwary travelers.
So they just hid behind the trees and did like a force ball at the heads of these.
Yeah, absolutely. One of them did a crane kick and kicked the guy off a cliff, and it was all in slow mo with the wah, 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 wah sound effect on it. It was really awesome.
Well, I'm starting to believe this Yeti attack thing.
Yeah.
Well, another thing I have a problem with is if the tent was cut from the inside. I don't know. This tent, you can find pictures of it. It looks kind of small to be housing 9 people. These people had to be on top of each other.
Maybe it was a orgy expedition. Maybe it was just not accepted. So like, you know what? Fuck it. We're gonna go up in the mountains and we're gonna get our orgy on in this little tiny tent.
We don't need a bigger tent. That's why it's so small.
Yeah.
But do you think that would play a factor in maybe hearing something outside and having everybody freak out? Because I don't know. I think that goes against human nature and reaction. If something was outside, even though it's a tent, I think if fear took over, they would just cower in whatever structure they're in. I have a hard time imagining what would make them cut the fucking tent open instead of just open the wee flap that's there and run out. But to destroy it? I mean, are they thinking they're not coming back to the tent? Where are they going to have shelter? Where are they going to get any type of protection from the elements?
Well, there is another theory that I would like to run by you, Mateo, that might explain where all this chaos and lunacy came from.
Nice.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the mushroom? I think it's called fly agara.
No.
It's a mushroom that grows. The spores travel specifically on pine seeds. So the seeds on the pine cone. So they grow almost exclusively underneath pine trees. And they're the classic mushroom that you would see with the big red cap and the white dots all over it. And they're extremely toxic if eaten fresh. They'll kill you. But if you dry them out, it lessens the toxin so that you can take them, and it has a psychotropic effect on your brain. In the past, and you may have heard this from Vikings doing this as well, but there's reindeer that love the taste of these mushrooms.
They love to be fucked up.
Yeah, the toxins they're not lethal to them, but it fucks up the reindeer. So the reindeer love this shit, and they mow on it, and then they piss, and their piss is psychoactive. So the Vikings would collect the piss and then drink the deer piss and go into their berserker rage. There were some practices though where with local shamans that would collect these, and let me tell you a little story here, just a little side story about some of the practices regarding these mushrooms. The shaman of the village, and this is going back to older times, but I believe that the practice still persists to this day. But the shaman would get a big sack, throw it over his shoulder. He would dress all in red with white trim, or in some cases all red with white polka dots, and throw the sack over his shoulder, throw on his boots, and go hike out into the wilderness with his reindeer to collect these mushrooms. Now, he dressed in red and white to pay homage to the mushroom, because the mushroom is red with the white spots. So he'd collect the mushrooms, feed them to his reindeer, and then collect the reindeer piss. If he didn't have a reindeer with him, he would fill a sack up with the mushrooms and bring them back to the village, where he would dry them over a fire, and then they would be consumed in that way. So basically, he's like the Santa Claus of mushrooms.
No.
But it was seen as like and it typically would take place in the winter months when this would happen. So it's really like around Christmas time, this guy would dress like Santa and go get magic mushrooms in the woods.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But what if some of the members of this hiking crew were aware of this practice and knew what they were looking for, and like, hey, let's dry some of these mushrooms out. We'll set up camp for the night and we'll get all fucked up.
That's a real good and plausible possibility. I mean, I think the youngest member in the group was 18 and the oldest was like 29 or 31. So these pretty much a group of kids. And I mean, I can't look past that. I don't see that being too much of a stretch of them setting up camp under a certain spot and going, holy shit, look what we found.
Yeah.
Anybody want to do these? And then, all it takes is three of them saying, fuck yeah, to where the rest go, yeah, sure.
Yeah. And maybe none of them were experienced. Maybe they took too much and they started freaking out.
Oh, yeah.
And they had to cut their way out of the tent. And one of the guys ran off going crazy. And then probably one of the girls got one of the more sober guys to get his shit together. And she's probably like, listen, we got to go after him. So they paired off and went after to find him. And the rest of the crew stayed behind. And then they got freaked out because they didn't come back. So they're like, we got to go find them. And then they got fucked up. And they were all messed up on the drugs. And they got beaten to death by a yeti.
Wow, fucked up on drugs. Oh my God.
Yes.
That's horrible.
It's the worst way to go, because you're like, I'm fucked up. Am I really seeing this yeti? And then the yeti gives you a super kick to the chest and your heart explodes.
Yeah, he wasn't coming to hug you.
He super kicks you so hard that your body is covered in radiation after you're dead. That's how hard he kicks you. How is that possible? I don't fucking know, but he did it. The tactical yeti.
Yeah, the tactical Buddhist monk trained mystical yeti.
Yeah.
That's something that we didn't mention. Is that was it all of them or only a couple of them? A couple of the bodies were found to be doused in radiation.
It was the clothes that they were wearing, I believe.
Whoa!
What little clothes they had.
That's even weirder.
There's a theory about that as well that explain. See, a lot of these theories can explain away parts of the events, but none of them really explain all of it.
That's a really good point to make. There's certain things that you can say will explain parts, but to explain the entire situation and how it looks like it went down is almost impossible.
Yeah. And I think this one, if a certain set of events were to take place, I think could explain most of it. And the theory here is that a few, or perhaps even the entire group, were double agents, working with the CIA or working with the KGB to get information from the CIA. So the story goes that an arrangement was made between a few in the party and a CIA liaison in the mountains. And there were CIA agents that were posing as tourists or geologists, I can't remember which, but they were posing as, mild-mannered people in the mountains. And they had arranged for delivery of some nuclear material and maybe some plans. And once it was kept secret among just the people in the group that were aware, and the whole mission was framed around this hiking trip that they were going to be taking. And when the time came to meet up with the CIA agents, they weren't really working for the CIA. They were working for the KGB in an attempt to find CIA agents that were undercover in Russia. So by working out this deal with CIA agents, they would be able to identify who these agents were and report back to the KGB. Now, the theory posits that they were about to make the exchange when something happened and the CIA agents realized that they were going to be double-crossed, and as a result, ended up killing the entire group.
Via magic yetis.
Yeah, magic yetis. Now, the thing here that's weird is if it was the CIA, you'd have to think that they would most likely use guns and then they would cover it up. I think it would be very difficult to, unless the only other thing that I could think of would be the CIA agents killed the individuals that had double-crossed them. Maybe they threw them off a cliff or something, or smashed them with a brick. I don't know. But they killed them, and then they were like, oh shit, they're part of this group. Well, what are we going to do? We can't get Russian authorities involved in a search because we're up here. So then they went and killed the other people and just staged it as this crazy scene where, I mean, they very likely could have cut their way out the back of the tent on their way through. Just to make it look crazy, and then take some of the clothes. And because they were bringing some nuclear material, that's why the radiation was on their clothes, because they were carrying it with them to the rendezvous point.
Right.
So then the Americans have to cover it up, so they create this crazy crime scene where nobody would be able to decipher what happened, and away they go. Yeah,
well, that could explain the radiation. I've heard people link the radiation to UFOs, and the whole explanation that this was a UFO attack.
And there's some evidence to that as well. So one of the people in the crew was found with a camera still around their neck. And there is a frame on the film. And there's a few weird pictures in the film, but there's one frame in particular, I believe it's the 15th frame, that shows this weird blurry light formation. And I mean, honestly, it could be anything. It might not even be in the sky. It's very difficult to tell. But there is the reports from people around the region of seeing these orange glowing lights in the sky that night. And this group of hunters witnessed the lights flying towards the area where the group was camping for the night. So I know the theory says that maybe they were abducted, or maybe some of them were abducted and some were killed to allow for easy abduction of the other ones, and that's why tongue and eyes were removed. But that doesn't really go along with any of the things that occur with that sort of type of event. Usually with the abduction scenario, it seems to be based around reproduction, and taking the eyes and the tongue have nothing to do with reproduction at all. And then they just left the bodies in this weird state. I personally don't think that the UFO theory holds very much water at all. I think that is up there with the Yeti.
Same here. I don't buy the UFO thing. The only reason I think people bring that up at all is the radiation and
the orange lights.
The orange lights,
I mean, the orange lights are pretty significant, but I think that there's another theory that could account for that as well.
I also think the pictures, at least the one that was missing the eyes and the tongue, just automatically makes people think of the photos of the South American human mutilation victims that we all know and love.
From Brazil?
Yeah. They look very similar.
Yeah, but this guy has been laying out and being exposed to the weather for 3 weeks before being found. So it could be anything that caused that to happen. My personal feeling on this is that it was a Russian missile test. That's where the orange lights in the sky came from. And I think that the missiles were coming down on the mountain, happened to be close to where the crew was stationed. They heard the explosions, got freaked out, cut out the back of the tent, and just took off running, and ultimately ended up being hit with the force from an explosion. And I think that's why there's no external wounds, and why it looks like it was damage made by impact. And I think that is probably why. It was probably a concussion wave that just hit them while they were standing too close to an exploding missile.
Now that can kind of be supported by a lot of other things. I mean, if we're talking about this team that set out on January 25th and that was supposed to touch base with the school on the 15th, and nobody even sent anybody to look for the missing students or find out what happened for 3 weeks. I mean, nothing smells like a cover-up other than not trying to find missing people.
Right. And you'd have to consider who would be responsible for the search. It would be government agencies, which would be tied to the intelligence agencies and the military. And if there was a military test being conducted and they were aware of the area where these people went missing, as well as being aware of where the missile struck. And maybe, I mean, it could have been an unintentional strike. Maybe it was just a missile test and the missile failed and crashed into the mountains. And the explosion created the concussive force that killed all these people. But because they were doing these secret tests, they had to cover it up. And what better way to cover it up than just stage this whole scene of all this chaos and then be like, we have no idea what happened. It was the Mansi natives and they didn't like them on the mountain, and so they killed them, and that's what happened with their Yeti friends.
And maybe it was those people. Maybe they control the mystical, magical Yetis that are out there.
Maybe. They've got a pact with the Yetis. They're like, listen, we need to keep our hands clean. You guys technically don't even exist. So if you could, go fuck up those tourists, that'd be awesome.
A few shadow punches and
a couple of crane kicks.
Problem solved.
Deed is done. But I really think that the missile test makes the most sense and explains what happened. Even without the military cover-up aspect, it could still explain what happened. I mean, they got freaked out by a missile cut out the back of the tent so they could take off running. Didn't have time to put their clothes on because they were sleeping. And then the missile exploded and they went flying.
You know, living in the middle of the Cold War and being Russian, if I heard a bomb or something that sounded like incoming bombs going off while I'm asleep in a tent, I think that's one of the things on the planet that would have made me pull out my fucking knife and cut that tent open and start booking it.
Right.
Starting to like that theory as well.
Now, you can call this coincidence, or maybe this bolsters the claim for the paranormal, but there were 9 hikers that died here. There was also a case of 9 Mansi hunters that had died on a nearby mountain. And a couple of years later, there was a plane crash that killed 9 geologists, also on a nearby mountain.
Huh. I wonder what the case with the Mansi.
I'm not sure on that one. I know that it was reported that there were 9 Mansi tribe members that had died and were found on a nearby ridge. And then I think the plane crash took place in 1961, but there were 9 geologists that died. So you got 3 series of 9 deaths in the same area.
Does a question I had for you, and it's interesting that you brought up a cover-up. The rescue party was sent on the 20th, and they didn't find the expedition team's remains until the 26th. I wish I knew how long it took to get to the area where they were found at this pass, but that almost seems like a long amount of time. 6 days to get to them at least?
Well, you got to keep in mind that you're trying to uncover bodies that were being hidden by tactical yetis.
Yeah, they're pros.
This is a delicate process. Well, and not to mention, really, I mean, you're looking for bodies on a mountain. Like there's a lot of things to cover on a mountain. You got to look for cracks, caves. You got to take into consider avalanches, trees, forests, predators. There's all manner of things that you need to be on the lookout for. And that reminds me, one of the theories is that it was an avalanche that forced them out of the tent. But just to debunk that really quick, the entrance and the back of the tent were completely out of the snow. It was just the center that had caved in. So like I mentioned earlier, it was likely just from snow accumulation resting on the middle of a tent. And over 3 weeks, it's going to cause it to cave in. There really isn't evidence to support the theory that it was an avalanche that forced them out of the tent.
No, and I don't. I live in the West Coast. I don't know much about being in the snow. I know it's fucking cold and sucks. I've been there, but I don't know if a huge pile of snow is enough to crush somebody's rib cage. Snow's soft, right? It won't cut you. It won't bash your ribs in.
Well, I mean, you get a certain amount of weight of anything, it's going to crush you. Just because a little bit of snow is light and fluffy. You have 10 tons of snow on you. It's going to crush you just as good as 10 tons of cement. It's just going to take more of it.
The bodies that were found 2 months after the first few were initially discovered, they were under several feet of snow and ice. So, I mean, it's just so weird that they waited 3 weeks to send anybody. 3 weeks.
Well, they probably had to go through fucking Russian bureaucracy. Like, indicate why they had to do it. And if there was a cover-up, then they could have delayed that as long as they needed to get the cover-up completed. And then once the cover-up's completed, they give the go-ahead, and the local authorities go and do their thing and discover the bodies, and like, oh my God, we found the bodies.
Yeah, I just have a hard time imagining myself being one of the parents of one of these students. This is a school. They're students.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine them supposed to sending word to the school on the 15th, and then having the school say, oh, we'll give it a couple days. And I mean, if they're hiking across a mountain, that's understandable. And the more I read into how long it took for them to send a search party, the school almost didn't want to. The family members really complained. And it just, I can't get over the fact of waiting that long and being a parent and having a week go by and saying like, hey guys, it's been a few fucking days. It's actually been 7. And then having them wait 2 more weeks. If something went wrong, they're fucking for sure dead now. For sure.
Yeah, but as a average Russian citizen, what are you going to do?
Yeah, not a goddamn thing, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. If my 18-year-old kid was stuck up there, I would have fucking went there and hiked that fucking mountain and died up there myself.
You would have been proud that he died exploring for Mother Russia.
Probably. If you fell to the Yeti, this is good.
Yeah, that's how it was meant to be. And then, if you're feeling really vengeful, you go drink a handle of vodka and go into the mountains to fight that Yeti.
And the Yetis drink their equivalent to vodka, which is like fermented reindeer piss.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Imagine a Yeti on one of the berserker mushroom juice rages.
The key is to find a bear that you can ride. So then you've got a bear companion, and you and your bear have a handicap match against the tripping Yeti.
But again, the Yeti, dude, maybe that's who trains the Yetis. Maybe Khabib Nurmagomedov is the one who's teaching them the shadow punch technique. Maybe. I'm not fucking with the Yetis then.
In a twist, he goes against the bear warriors and trains the Yetis to destroy their nemesis, the bear riders.
Yeah, he's like, I taught the bears to wear a saddle. I've taught the Yetis to shadow punch.
Yeah.
Oh man,
it's tough, man. So you got vengeful father on his bear, and Khabib, who wasn't even born yet, but somehow was there, and his tripping Yeti in a cage match.
Yeah. I like that the missile misfire explanation, and I think the mushroom things is something that should be looked at more. If we're talking about the same mushrooms the Vikings would take to enter their berserker rage, I mean, I highly suggest you read into that a little bit, guys, because I mean, oh man, you got to be fucked up if you're gonna get butt naked and face like a fucking wall of Roman soldiers. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Those guys were, I mean, berserker, it's not an understatement. That's where it came from.
Yeah, well, the name berserker came from bearsark, which is bear shirt, because they would wear the skins of animals when they went into the berserker fury to make so that they could, summon the spirit of that animal while fighting. So they would fight like a bear or fight like a wolf.
Oh man, I don't think I'd fight a war, like a hand-to-hand combat war naked, but if I had to fight like a giant creature or maybe one of these Yetis, I think I'd get naked just to be equal. I think I've said that before. I'd be like,
swing my dong around with a Yeti, no big deal.
Maybe what if that's the requirement to fight? Maybe they cornered those 9 students.
You try to fight him and he just like Dikembe Mutombos you, and you're like, what's the deal? And he just points to your pants.
Oh,
and you're like, oh.
That's why the students were missing their clothes. Some of them were in mid-process.
He was challenging them to fights, and he just kept making them take their pants off.
Yeah, we don't want to fight you, Yeti. We don't want to. He just keeps pointing. Some of them run for it, and they get the kick to the ribs.
No, they get the shadow punch if they run.
Yeah, and that's what happened.
Runners get the shadow punch. You take your pants off, you get a roundhouse kick to the chest. Those are your options.
Yeah, the one with the missing eyes and tongue was the one who actually went through the challenge and lost.
Yeah, he caught a crane kick, bit his own tongue off, and his eyes exploded in his skull. And then the Yeti peed on him, and that's why it was radioactive.
Yeah, that's from the mushrooms. Once it's processed through a Yeti's kidney system.
Yeti, that makes it radioactive, and then he covers you with his glowing green urine, and instead of superpowers, your eyes explode.
And guess what? That's like a sign of respect and worthy opponent, because they're trying to ease the suffering as you die. They're like, get loaded real quick on my pee.
He's like, you know what? You took your pants off. You're willing to take my fucking karate kick to the face. You
may die tripping balls.
Yeah. Here's an instant trip for you. And by the way, your corpse is radioactive. You're welcome.
Man, just going into the middle of the woods where it's constantly blazing snow everywhere, 24 hours a day, doesn't seem like the place to take a bunch of old Viking Santa mushrooms.
See, I disagree. I think it's a wonderful place. There's nothing more peaceful than a calm winter night. And if you can have a fire and stay warm, I think it would be ideal. And you're in the mountains, so you can look at the stars, and you just have the wind blowing around and just the moon shining on the snow, and everything is this beautiful tones of blue. I could see it being really awesome, actually.
Now, can you really enjoy that, knowing that there might be mystically trained yetis around, ready to
I think I would enjoy it more knowing that there were mystic yetis lurking around. I'd feel like I could relate to them on their level at that point.
What if they're like, get off our land, you shitty hippie. You're desecrating the sacred mushroom, you piece of shit.
Can I come down first? And he's like, take your pants off. And then we karate fight, and I get my ass kicked. And then he pisses on me. And then I don't die, and he gets mad that he pissed on me. So then he takes a dump on me, and the dump is super radioactive. It's like the slurry that came out of Chernobyl.
Yeah, it literally affects your skin like Jeff
It
Goldblum's
just
fly
starts
throw up.
melting a hole through my chest. And that's the undignified way that Mike dies.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, melted by Yeti turd.
All because you wanted to go sit in the woods. I had a friend.
Yeah, just because I wanted to trip balls in the mountains of Russia, I die by being melted by Yeti turds.
I had a friend recently invite my family and I camping. You know what I said?
Absolutely.
I said, fuck no. Go listen to the couple shows we did on the missing people in the parks. Absolutely not. My wife's like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah, I'm fucking serious. We're not going camping.
Camping is awesome, dude. You're missing out.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. And even if you get abducted, just think of the mystery that you'll have solved before you die horribly.
I'll go by myself. I just don't want to take my wife and kids and shit. I'll go if there's a chance of me disappearing. That'll be fun. I want to see what's out there.
I want to see the other side of that disappearance.
Yeah. But not with, a bunch of friends and kids and family. Jesus.
I do. I love going camping. I've never been camping at a national park, but I've been camping at many state parks. Go hiking at state parks. All manner of craziness. I've never been abducted or karate kicked by a Bigfoot, though.
Good.
Or arm wrestled a dog man.
Ooh, that'd be a short arm wrestling match.
I know. Fucking pussy dog man. I could kick its ass.
Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? Try the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.